Poland's housing crisis is escalating at a record pace. Over the past 3 years, the number of people who spend more than half of their salary on housing has nearly doubled, and more are spending over 60% of their earnings on housing. What should be a basic need is increasingly becoming either an unfulfilled dream or a lifelong financial burden. Record housing costs and a dramatic shortage of housing. This is the situation in Poland today. According to a report by the Habitat for Humanity Poland Foundation, the country's housing supply is short by approximately 2 million homes to meet the needs of the citizens. This housing shortage is caused, in part, by lobbying from real estate developers, who are not interested in alleviating this shortage, as that would reduce their profits. The role of the government and local authorities is to fill this gap. For now, the government is turning a blind eye, and real estate developers are rubbing their hands with glee. Young people are losing out the most, and homeownership remains a pipe dream for much of the younger generation.
Niemożliwe w tym wieku mieć mieszkanie, chyba że się je odziedziczy.
Ceny są bardzo wysokie, więc pewnie jest to możliwe, ale musimy się mocno postarać, także łatwo nie jest.
Today, owning an apartment is a downright luxury. The premium version even features a kitchen and a separate toilet.
Gro ludzi dorosłych mieszka z rodzicami. I to jest w ogóle, nie wiem, czy to jest po prostu efekt taki, że ludzi nie stać na te mieszkania, bo cena mieszkania w Warszawie przynajmniej i w wielkich miastach to jest dla mnie nierealna.
Young Poles are ambitious and are waiting for concrete action from the government. Meanwhile, the statistics are relentless. In 3 years, the percentage of young people living on their own has fallen from 65 to 60%. The previous government certainly did something very useful, namely relieving young people of taxes, thanks to which young people can often save considerable sums of money. Currently, many Poles are faced with a difficult choice: take out a loan or rent an apartment. The situation is so serious that, in 3 years, the percentage of people who spend more than 60% of their salary on housing has increased from 2 to 5%. What's more than half of those surveyed spend between 30 and 50% of their income on housing. You can see how much we spend on loan repayments. This is a huge burden for Polish households. A huge problem for Poles is the so-called rent gap. This is a situation where a citizen earns too much to receive support from the state, but too little to buy or rent an apartment on the private market. As a result, they have nowhere to live. This gap affects almost 30% of the population. The rent gap is particularly discouraging when it comes to starting a family, which in turn translates into a demographic crisis. So we have a self-perpetuating downward spiral. Every market seeks an equilibrium. If Poland's demographic crisis deepens, there may simply be no buyers left in the housing market. This would certainly be a grim resolution to the market's current tension. Alaska, the one U.S. state to border Russia. Will it be here that peace is finally achieved? President Donald Trump will personally meet Vladimir Putin to seek a resolution to the biggest war on the European continent since World War II.
Rozmowy są bardzo potrzebne.
These talks are very necessary, no matter how much Putin pretends otherwise. It's good that Donald Trump is taking the initiative here. It is clear as day that all those critics of Trump who thought he was a Russian asset and he would pursue a policy of appeasement towards Russia were wrong. He is not doing so. Trump's policy was that of carrot and stick. Russia initially received an offer concerning peace talks. When the Americans saw that these peace talks were not happening, they had the choice of either putting pressure on Russia or withdrawing from the whole endeavor.
Się w ogóle wycofać z całego formatu.
Donald Trump chose the first option. He decided to personally appeal to Putin's common sense and threaten him with further economic sanctions and increased military support for Ukraine. The highly anticipated meeting between myself, as President of the United States of America, and President Vladimir Putin of Russia will take place next Friday, August 15, 2025, in the great state of Alaska. Further details to follow. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Preparations are already underway in Alaska. This meeting will most likely take place in the state's capital, Anchorage. Secret Service agents and other services responsible for the U.S. president's security have already arrived in the city.
I'll be meeting very shortly with President Putin, It would have been sooner, but I guess there's security arrangements that unfortunately people have to make. Otherwise, I'd do it much quicker. He would too. He'd like to meet as soon as possible. I agree with it.
In recent weeks, Donald Trump has spoken openly about what he thinks of Putin, saying that the Kremlin's leader has gone mad and is carrying out pointless attacks on civilians. He has also taken decisive action. He has supplied Ukraine with a new package of weapons and signed further economic sanctions against Russia.
We have been aggressively working, trying to break the logjam. One of the most important logjams is that Vladimir Putin said that he would never sit down with Zelensky, the head of Ukraine, and the president has now got that to change. We're at a point now where we're now trying to figure out, frankly, scheduling and things like that around when these three leaders could sit down and discuss an end to this conflict.
Ukrainian civilians, who are attacked every night by Russian airstrikes, would have very much liked this to happen. Recently, Putin's troops targeted civilians in Zaporizhia. A residential area, a bus station, and a hospital were shelled, killing and injuring civilians, including children.
I'm not trying to tell you or anybody else that I think Ukraine can evict every Russian soldier. I am here to tell you that President Trump will end this war in a way to prevent a third invasion.
Kyiv assures that it is ready for talks, but will not give up a single piece of land occupied by Russia.
Я дуже ціную ту рішучість, з якою президент Трамп налаштований зупинити смерті у війні. І щодня багато людей віддають свої життя. Але єдиною першопричиною цих вбивств є бажання Путіна воювати та маніпулювати.
These will not be easy talks, but they may be the last hope for peace. The Russians only understand one language, the language of force. If President Trump shows Putin that he is capable of providing even more military aid to Ukraine, it will certainly be a signal that the Americans are playing hardball.
Będzie to sygnał dla prezydenta Putina, że Amerykanie grają twardo.
The USA is playing hardball, especially on their own turf in Alaska, which was purchased from Russia over 150 years ago.
Tens of thousands of victims, including women and children. They were killed by Ukrainian nationalists, but also often by their own neighbors, just because they were Polish. The Valinia massacre took place over 80 years ago. After many years of efforts to exhume the bodies, the struggle to commemorate the victims of this genocide in a dignified manner continues. In fact, we can assume that most of the places where they were laid to rest, because it is difficult to say that they were buried. Poles who were murdered during the Valinia massacre, during this genocide in Valinia. To this day, these victims have no memorial. They are not even commemorated, let alone buried in a Catholic manner, so that we can stand over the graves of those who were murdered at that time. The issue of the burial of those murdered during the Valinia massacre is a fundamental one. The new head of the Ukrainian Institute of National Remembrance, Oleksandr Alfyorov, speaks of his support for exhumation and dialogue, while at the same time claiming that every nation has the right to its heroes. However, every nation has, above all, the right to preserve the memory of its murdered members. No nation is chosen to suffer for its past, present, or even future. We cannot accept that we Poles are denied the right to bury the victims of the Valinia genocide, because they are not calling for revenge, they are calling for a cross. The lack of resolution of the Valinia issue is not only a bone of contention between Poles and Ukrainians, but also fuel for Russian propaganda, which wants to divide us, especially in a situation where Poland has given strong support to Ukraine, which has been attacked by Russia. Valinia is something that divides Poles and Ukrainians, so Russian propaganda will use it until the great success that took place at the National Stadium in order to divide us, to hinder our cooperation and understanding. Belarusian rapper Max Korж, known mainly beyond our eastern border, performed at the National Stadium in Warsaw, Poland. Tickets were sold out, and what was supposed to be a pleasant music event turned into real chaos. The concert was attended mainly by Belarusians and Ukrainians. 109 people were detained. Every person who broke the law during this concert will be punished. If these were people who broke the law in such a way that they give no guarantee of not breaking the law on Polish territory, we will certainly also implement procedures to send these people back to their countries. Dariusz Matecki, president of the Anti-Polonism Monitoring Center, announces action. This is a notification that my foundation, the Anti-Polonism Monitoring Center, is sending to the prosecutor's office today regarding the promotion of a totalitarian regime. It concerns the display of the Bandera flag during a concert at the National Stadium. This was the promotion of an ideology that led to the brutal murder of over 100,000 Poles simply because they were Polish. We have already established the identity of this man. This is him. His name and surname have been given to the Polish authorities and are currently being received by the Polish prosecutor's office. In addition to the red and black flag of the Ukrainian insurgent army, which has the blood of Poles murdered in the Valinia massacre on its hands, Nazi symbols also appeared at the concert. Any emblems associated with the Ukrainian insurgent army, flags that may refer to the Ukrainian insurgent army, are truly terrifying for Poles. This is because they are associated with the Valinia massacre, with the brutal murder of our compatriots during World War II, and even in the period after World War II. And all this in the capital of Poland, a country that 3 years ago, after Russia's invasion, came to the aid of Ukrainians. During this concert, not only was Banderism promoted, the National Stadium in the heart of our capital was also vandalized. Ukrainians who should be showing us gratitude are committing acts of vandalism and destroying public property. Stadium security guards were beaten, the metro was vandalized, and Ukrainians were disturbing public order in Warsaw. The former Polish ambassador to the United States also commented on the matter. Hundreds of able-bodied conscription-age Ukrainians last night at a concert in Warsaw, proudly displaying a red and black nationalist flag, an outrageous insult to most Poles. As Polish ambassador to the United States, I was staunchly defending the Ukrainian cause in D.C. Now, I am truly enraged. We can expect Russia to exploit the scandal at the concert. Any element that can be used by agents hostile to Poland and friendly to Russia can be exploited, and that is what happened. I am outraged that this concert was not interrupted. The concert was not interrupted, but it did provide fuel for Russian propaganda. Fires are ravaging southern Europe. When some are finally brought under control or extinguished, others break out. Croatian firefighters are battling a large forest fire east of Split. In Montenegro, there are several fires burning hills and forests near Podgorica. In Spain, a Catalan national park is burning. And in Italy, there are fires in the area around Mount Vesuvius. For the second day in a row, firefighters are tirelessly battling a fire threatening a seaside resort on the Adriatic near Split. With the help of residents and firefighting planes, they are doing everything they can to prevent the flames from reaching homes and hotels.
A lot of smoke, so I have asthma, so I would like just to run here to this side, so it's good now.
About 150 firefighters and 3 firefighting planes prevented the burning of houses and small hotels in the area. Several dozen tourists were evacuated, and the main road between Split and Omis was closed to traffic. I smelled smoke around 4 a.m. The forest was burning just above the village of Sumpetar, and by 6 a.m. it had spread all the way here. Congratulations to our firefighters and firefighting aircraft pilots. If they hadn't arrived on time, the fire would have reached us. Strong winds from the north combined with extreme heat in the Balkans are spreading the fire for many kilometers along the Croatian coast. The fight against fire is also underway in several regions of Montenegro, which has only 1 operational firefighting plane and 1 helicopter. Neighboring countries cannot help because they are fighting their own fires. Because the fire is quite intense and widespread, I can say that we are happy with every house we have managed to save. And we are particularly happy about the shelter because we also take care of abandoned animals. In Albania, most of the nearly 40 fires that broke out in the last 24 hours have been brought under control. The most difficult situation remains in the southern coastal region of Finik, about 160 kilometers south of the capital. About 800 Albanian soldiers with military planes and helicopters have been sent to fight the forest fires. Since the beginning of July, 35,000 hectares of forest have burned in Albania. Extreme heat and strong winds have caused fires in Spain. The flames have destroyed dozens of homes and forced the evacuation of hundreds of people from a Catalan national park listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Several fires broke out in the regions of Castile and León, and about 700 people in 6 villages were ordered to leave their homes. We came here today to see what the situation is like. How should I feel? Fire is a terrible disaster. People are suffering greatly, especially the elderly, because they are vulnerable. Dry vegetation and strong winds mean that any spark can cause a huge fire, sometimes creating so-called fire whirls or tornadoes. Since the beginning of the year, 17 large fires have consumed over 46,000 hectares in Spain. Neighboring Portugal is also struggling with a series of forest fires during another heat wave. Authorities report 3 large fires. Hundreds of homes had to be evacuated. About 2,000 firefighters are on site, trying to extinguish the flames. For the 4th day, firefighters and volunteers have been trying to extinguish the Terzigno pine forest fire in the national park on the slopes of Mount Vesuvius in southern Italy. Ground teams have focused on checking already burned areas and cutting fire breaks. The fire, which is about 3 kilometers wide, has destroyed hundreds of hectares of forest. Authorities warn that strong winds and steep terrain continue to hamper efforts to fight the fire in one of Italy's most visited national parks.